Fall is in the air and playoff baseball is around the corner. And Team Toyota has everything you need from the tailgate to the trip home, like a great selection of new Toyota trucks and SUVs to choose from, or a lineup with over 200 certified used Toyotas. Plus, our service and collision centers are here to get you back in the game in no time. Visit one of our 3 locations in Princeton, Langhorne, or Glen Mills, or online at teamtoyota.net.
Two more games, Sean Kane. 2 more games when we wrap up the regular season. Welcome into Phillies Talk, presented by Team Toyota. I'm Spencer McKercher, joined by the one and only Sean Kane. That we were just kind of talking pregame. We'll get to it. A little teaser here. We got a big day, for Phillies pregame live. And by the time you're probably listening this or watching this, you'll find out it's the what is it? The
7th annual.
7th annual.
Yeah, it started as a vision between myself and Ricky Paul Vitalico way back in 2018, some sort of season-ending award show. So it's the aptly named Ricky Awards, 7th annual.
That's crazy.
We're getting ready today. We've got hardware to hand out. We've got special music and great. It's just we got a lot going on for the Rickies. So look forward on the pregame show starting at 3:30 today.
Oh yeah,
I should say Saturday if you're watching.
We'll give you a little teaser towards the end of the show on what you could be expecting, and if you miss it, maybe we'll even give 1 or 2 awards out. But if we don't see it, it'll be all over our social and our YouTube and all that fun stuff. Especially seeing Ricky in like a full suit.
Yes,
it's a big day for him. It's a huge day for him. Yeah, he does.
It's a big deal.
He does. So I feel like I always ask you, especially when we start here. You want to start with the positives and negatives.
Mm-hmm.
We just started with a big positive there with the Ricky Awards, but we'll start positive and then we'll get into whatever that was on Friday night.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the final series at home there. Big series win. They clinched the first round bye in the NLDS, or a spot in the NLDS. With a win on Wednesday. And then, of course, dude, how awesome was that moment with Brandon Marshall on the field watching the Pirates?
Yeah. That was awesome.
That was awesome, man. It was one of those cooler moments. As soon as it happened, we were like, yeah, that better be all over social media. And it was, and it blew up and pretty cool. But yeah, just to kind of recap, Christopher Sanchez on the mound. Wasn't his best start either, but the offense kind of woke up, and big day from Trey. Cassidy goes yard. Cody Clemens goes yard. We'll get to Cody in a second in his spot, possibly on the playoff roster. But yeah, I mean, it just to clinch a first round bye, I guess, is huge.
Yeah.
And that's been one of their season-long goals, and they accomplished that.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, Rob Thompson laid it out like a few weeks ago, and he said it a few times, like they want to make the playoffs because that's something worth celebrating, which they did very kind of modestly celebrate that when they did clinch a berth up in New York. And then the division was their big thing, which obviously they had a big celebration for that earlier this week. And then, they wanted that bye. Obviously, in recent history, teams with the bye haven't fared well, but just objectively, you want the bye because it eliminates any chance of you losing in the wild card series because you don't have to play in one. So you're through to the NLDS, which will be the Final Four in the National League. So they wanted that. They wanted the chance to kind of set their pitching for the NLDS. They'll line up Wheeler for Game 1 a week from today, next Saturday. So that's obviously something you want. The number 1 seed, Rob Thompson kind of said earlier this week, which caught me a little by surprise, that if we get that number 1 seed, that's a bonus. I don't want to put guys in harm's way, meaning I don't want to get guys hurt or guys that could use some rest. I'm not gonna push guys so we can run down the Dodgers and get that number 1 seed. And as we sit here Saturday, it looks pretty unlikely that they'll be the number 1 seed. They're probably going to be that number 2 seed, which, if it does come down to the Phillies and Dodgers in the NLCS, the Dodgers would have home field. But as we've seen, not the top seeds don't advance. So if it's the Dodgers happen to get upended in the NLDS, then the Phillies, if they were to win their NLDS, would have home field. So I guess I see a little bit of it not being a big deal, but yeah, so it was a good week for checking off some of those goals. So that's the positive. The big picture, the positive of having that bye, winning the division, a pretty productive, successful week worth celebrating.
It is, man. And me and Corey kind of got into it. we had some fun on Monday night after they clinched the division, and got in here and recorded a pod late with me and Corey, and it was a good time, and it was a lot of fun. But how was your day on Monday, by the way? Just as the post game producer, it was a long night, a long show.
We had been prepared. Obviously, Saturday in New York, they had a chance to win the division. Lost to the Mets. Sunday with Wheeler on the mound, we're like, okay, lost to the Mets, but
a lock.
with Saturday, Saturday game was on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Sunday was not. So the one silver lining was, in addition to them doing it at home, for us, television-wise, was Monday's game where they ended up clinching against the Cubs was broadcast on NBC Sports Philadelphia on our air. And that obviously entails having our event crew working the game, our truck working the game, gives us as a post-game show access to a ton of cameras for that celebration, as opposed to when it's an ESPN game. We don't have as many cameras. We just have maybe 1 or 2 cameras of our own in the clubhouse. So it made for a better post-game show. We had cameras on the field because one of the cool things the last couple of years now has been they have that initial raucous celebration in the clubhouse. Guys are going nuts, spraying each other with beers and champagne. They have the toast, but then they kind of all make their way back out to the field, which I think is cool to give people kind of a glimpse of them with their families, their kids, tons of little kids running around. So we were able to capture all that too on the post-game show. So lots of good sights and sounds. Long day on Monday, but always the last, we've been kind of spoiled these last couple of years. I haven't done, probably including the regular season, we've probably done about 7 or 8 clinchers where they have parties in the clubhouse. So those are always the best post-game shows. Pretty easy to do as a producer, as long as you have the right technological pieces in place with cameras. I know you obviously are always in place for us as a camera. In addition to the event crew, you're in there shooting. You're in there with John Clark, doing interviews and getting some great video on the field, back in the clubhouse. So it's fun, cool to be a part of, and overall pretty successful.
It was great, man. And yeah, no, I touched on the pod on Monday. Had a great time. Me and John Clark, dude. I love working with that guy. He's amazing, and we had a lot of fun. Per usual, the third time that I got to work with John in a post-game celebration.
You made your way over to Xfinity afterwards too?
We did. Yeah. Oh yeah, we did. Had a good time over at Xfinity. Yeah, the boys had a good time. It was a lot of fun, man. So
awesome. Yeah,
we move forward. And as we sit here on Saturday, NLDS game 1 is a week from today, which is crazy, man. October 5th. We're getting into it here. I'm looking forward to it. We went out and asked some fans the other day, who they're least afraid of. And right now, I saw a tweet today that was kind of like, all right, either they're going to play the Braves, which most likely not, but there's a chance that they could still play the Braves if they can get in. And we'll talk about this craziness that's on the way for the Braves and Mets coming Monday. And their doubleheader could have huge implications, and then have to play in the wild card on Tuesday. But you got the Braves, you got the Mets, you got the Brewers and Rhys Hoskins, or, you got the Diamondbacks who, there could be a revenge factor there. Who do you want to see in that first round of the NLDS?
I mean, it's not really a good answer to this.
Exactly.
But I'll kind of do process of elimination. Like the Braves and Mets, throw them out. I don't want any parts of them in a 5-game series just because of the familiarity. They're both good teams, obviously, but like they're familiar with the Phillies. They know the Phillies. The Mets obviously just took 3 or 4 from them. The Mets came in here, gave them a good series the weekend before that. The Braves won the season series against the Phillies. So despite all and the Braves would obviously have a huge revenge factor. Roles would be reversed. They'd be coming off a wild card series win, whereas the Phillies would be the bye. And obviously we saw what happened the last 2 years. So throw those 2 out. I also don't really want any part of the Diamondbacks.
Yep.
They knocked the Phillies out last year, and you saw what they did to them in Arizona in early August. They took 3 or 4 there, and there was a couple blowouts in there. They just seem to be a bad matchup for the Phillies.
It's the kryptonite. It's their kryptonite, which is kind of strange. They've just figured out how to pitch against the Phils.
Yeah, for sure. And then, I mean, that kind of leaves you. I don't think, the Padres are going to be that first wild card 4 seed. They look like they're on the Dodgers side of the bracket, so I'll leave them out of there. So it kind of leaves the Brewers, who I wouldn't say, oh yeah, I want the Brewers. That's going to be easy. But like, I think they're the best of some bad options. I think they're well managed. I think they know how to win. They do the little stuff. Obviously, there's the Rhys Hoskins dynamic, which would be interesting. But I would like the Phillies' chances against them more, I guess, than the Mets and Braves, as weird as that sounds. I know the Brewers are division winner. They're going to win probably 95 games or right about there themselves. But I guess give me the Brewers. I mean, I know the Phillies just dropped 2 or 3 to them in Milwaukee, but give me the Brewers if I had to pick.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's just the Mets are scary. And now, and like, as we kind of just talked about, that whole entire mess that Hurricane Helene kind of put on Atlanta and the Mets now, having games being postponed Tuesday and Wednesday, now having to play in a very important doubleheader on Monday that could decide a lot of things on who gets a playoff spot or not. So with 2 games left in the regular season for the Phillies, the Mets still and Braves still have 4 games left. And there's a lot still to play for, especially that Monday. Especially, if the loser or the winner, I guess, could have to travel to Milwaukee. and or travel to San Diego the very next day. So there's a lot of implications involved with those guys. And I'm kind of sitting here very thankful that we do not have to be a part of that and kind of wait and see what happens. So yeah, man, there's a lot to get to here. Like you said, so we got Zach Wheeler on the mound today, but let's talk. I guess we can switch to the negative here and what's going on with Ranger Suarez right now. I personally don't know if I trust him to be that number 4 starter. I think Friday night kind of secured Christopher Sanchez to be your game 3 starter in the NLDS and possibly in the NLCS. There's just a lot to unpack. Ranger goes only 2 innings, allows 7 hits, 6 earned runs, walked 2, struck out 2. He just didn't have it. And Ricky said, where's the explosiveness that kind of came about in those first 10 starts of the season? He's a completely different player than he was. Rob Thompson and Ranger have both come out and said that there is nothing health-wise to worry about.
Right.
So what do you think's going on? I know Ricky on postgame yesterday and Ruben, they both had very strong opinions on, it's almost like a laziness, but it's not.
Yeah.
He's just not going, he's not having that fire and desire and like that launch towards the plate when he's in his windup. What do you see with Ranger?
Yeah, it's like the happy-go-lucky Ranger is not. I mean, it's just like a slog right now. Like last night, he took 59 pitches to get 6 outs. Like it was brutal. Like I didn't think he was getting out of the first inning at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think June 8th in London, that first London game he pitched, got his 10th win of the season.
Yep.
On June 8th, which is about 3.5 months ago now.
Crazy.
He has 2 wins since then. Now he spent about a month on the IL, but just like, not that wins are the end all, but just gives you an idea of how great he started. And now it's been rough. And he's got, I think, a 5.74 ERA since he came off the IL in 7 starts. Going back further that he had his struggles before he went on the IL, dating back to his last 12 or 13 starts.
Yep. Yeah, I just pulled up the graphic that you showed last night.
Yeah.
First 15 starts, 10-1 with a 1.75 ERA. You and I sat on this podcast and said, hey, he's the leader in the Cy Young.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a runaway with Ranger Suarez winning the Cy Young. And if you would have told us that in March and February, we would have been calling you crazy. And now we're sitting here feeling crazy, thinking that was an actual thing.
Yeah.
After his last 12 starts, 2-7 with a 6.17 ERA. That's in Taiwan Walker range, ERA-wise.
Right.
58 innings, only 50 strikeouts, and 22 walks. For perspective, his first 15 starts, he had 95 Ks and 19 walks.
Yeah. And he mentioned after the Mets start on Saturday last week and a week ago today, where he pitched okay, with 5 innings, 2 earned runs, not like great, but better than he did on Friday night last night. But he said after that, because of my back injury, I've been afraid to really push it and train my legs hard because I don't want to tweak my back. So I'm kind of, babying my legs and not really training / working out, even when he's pitching on game day, really using his legs as much as he wants to. So that kind of gave you a glimpse into, like, obviously the back's still a concern, or he's thinking about it and overcompensating. And yeah, he just seems like it's just a slog, like, is the best word I can come up with, but just winded and just not kind of like, Ranger out there smiling, casually getting, grounders back to the mound. It just seems like it's a real struggle for him. Rob Thompson said he's not hurt. You mentioned game 4 starter. I mean, I don't know how you can be confident going into a game 4, like, just for hypothetical, say the Phillies, they split at home and then they go lose game 3 in Milwaukee. And then you're going to turn to Ranger to keep the season alive in a game 4. Like, I know you don't have any other options, but I think they have to almost treat that like a bullpen game. And they had last year in the NLCS, they had Sanchez on a real short leash, and it wouldn't surprise me, like, the first sign of trouble in a Ranger postseason start, you get somebody up and you just can't let him dig a hole like he dug last night down 4-0 right off the bat. But it's just crazy because Ranger in October has been awesome.
That's right.
Starter, they're using him out of the pen.
Closed out a few games.
NLCS, he closed out the pennant. In that game where Harper hit the home run. So he's just been nails in a number of roles, and now it's like, oof, I don't know how they can feel confident with him on the mound next week or anytime in October.
Celebrity cook Steve Martirano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martirano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations for Martirano's Prime on OpenTable.
And Rob Thompson said last night, maybe the playoffs and that atmosphere, maybe that will amplify him a little bit. I thought that was an interesting quote from Rob, kind of just saying, and Ranger was asked the same question. He was like, yeah, maybe like a little bit that could get you fired up a little bit. But I thought it was a very interesting quote from Rob Thompson, basically saying, like, yeah, hopefully once October rolls around and the playoffs come, maybe everything gets a little amplified. But then again, you have this week off now. where the schedule came out. Corey Seven had a great tweet. We'll get to it in a second, but yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know how you can sit back and be like, oh yeah, he's going to get fired up by Saturday, or, whenever game 4 rolls around, if they even have a game 4. I don't know, man. Yeah, it stresses me out. Last night I was really hoping last regular season start, let's see a little bit, especially against this Nationals team. That's obviously not very good, and they're already packed in and all that. But speaking of real quick of last night's game, just a cool baseball moment again with Stone Garrett. That was awesome, man. First game, and he broke his fibula in Yankee Stadium in August of last year. His first game back, and I think there was a post-game interview on the field with him talking and saying that he kind of blacked out as soon as he saw Bryce at first base. He doesn't really remember. He let out a lot of emotion, which I would have too. And I got a little emotional in the interview, and it was really cool moment for Stone Garrett. But nonetheless, bigger fish to fry. And just the effort last night, I believe our good buddy Tom McCarthy and John Krug both let their feelings known in the 8th inning there, of kind of just like, this is disgusting. It was lifeless. It was disappointing. Is it just like, are the fellas just packing it in? I mean, I guess the 1 seed is obviously an option, or it was a goal to start the season to get that 1 seed.
Now it's like,
and now you kind of tuck it in there, and we got Wheeler on the mound tonight. But I don't know, man. It was just a lifeless effort from all around. No one covering first base. A lot of errors.
Forgetting to cover first. They had the botched double steal. With Castellanos, who's been their best hitter at the plate. Like, what are we doing? Why are we trying to double steal there?
And what, down 7-0?
Yeah, you got 2 outs. Like, so that was strange. They didn't hit all night. And it's not like the Nationals, who started for them last? Trevor Williams.
Who is not good.
In their bullpen. So it was strange. The offense was so flat. Again, the weather was kind of dreary. It was just kind of like, okay, let's just get this game in so we don't have to do a doubleheader on Saturday type of deal once you're down 7-0. But it was disappointing, the sloppiness. And last night they were down 1 game on the Dodgers. So they have the tiebreaker. So all they really needed to do was pull even. So if you sweep the Nationals, the Dodgers lose 1 game to Colorado, you're the number 1 seed, which again I think is worth pursuing. But last night was rough, surprising. Curious to see the performance behind Wheeler today. You see, the lineup. He pretty much played all his regulars. Like, he started pulling guys once it got out of hand.
Which I was
regulars
praying for. I was like, let's take everybody out. As soon as it's 7-0, just take Rob. Please take everyone out. It's not, especially in the rain. It is just not worth even attempting to come back in this game.
But I think with Wheeler on the mound, there's just such a respect from everybody for him. Obviously, he's fighting for a Cy Young. Give him support, score some runs for Zach Early today against Mackenzie Gore. I expect them to come out and, certainly put a better effort forward than they did last night.
For sure. And look at the lineup. Weston Wilson in left field today, batting 8th. Brandon Marsh in center field, batting 9th as we get ready for Saturdays.
Everybody else pretty much in there?
The entire, Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Casti, Bohm, JT, Stott, Weston Wilson, and Brandon Marsh with Zach on the mound. Pretty cool tidbit you gave me yesterday about Zach. Approaching 200 innings, correct?
6 1/3, I think.
6 1/3 away. It was cool. I think in the when we were talking in spring training, me, Corey, and Ricky did a prediction, and I asked, "Do you think Zach gets to 200 innings?" So, and this is a big spot for Zach, right? Obviously, by the time you're listening to this, he could have already pitched a gem and maybe locked up the Cy Young. But before the game here, as we talk, it's a big game for Zach, just in terms of trying to solidify some Cy Young voters here to get that Cy Young. And we've talked to Zach, and he's made it very abundantly clear that it's a goal of his to win the Cy Young, because that means it's helping his team win. What are your expectations for Zach?
He should have won in 2021. Corbin Burns had a great year, but Wheeler, if you go back and look at his numbers, I think he was the best pitcher in the National League that year. This year, he's been certainly worthy. Obviously, Chris Sale has been just as good in terms of ERA and record. Now, Wheeler has the edge in some innings and some other counting stats, but I think he's in the contention for it. I think Sale is probably still the front runner. The innings pitch thing is a big deal. He fell the last 2 years, 22 and 23. He was like 6 or 7 innings short of 200 both years. Like, he was kind of 1 start away. So I think he wants to hit it. He hit it in 21. He would hit it again this year, I think, with 6 1/3 innings on Saturday. And Rob Thompson said yesterday pregame, he's like, that's a big deal to Zach. So it's a big deal to me too. So he's basically read between the lines. I'm going to let Zach pitch into the 7th inning and get those 200 innings, barring any catastrophe.
Right.
But then he'll have a full week off, so it's not like you need to pull back on him too much, I don't think. Like, I know Wheeler doesn't really like having extra time off, so let him get his 7 innings today against the Nationals lineup that is generally pretty conducive to getting your 7 innings against, and then have the week off and gear him up for next Saturday. So But yeah, I think the 200 innings is cool. And Nola tomorrow on Sunday, I think needs 5 1/3. So to have two guys in this era, day and age, to go 200 innings, make 32, 33 starts. I think Wheeler's 32 starts today, which will match a career high. Nola will be 33 tomorrow. We can get into a whole nother Nola conversation. I'm just amazed by his durability, man. It's crazy to me. Like how he never gets hurt. He never goes on the IL. He takes the ball every 5 days. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think we've kind of made it to this season.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, those guys are great, man. And for them both to go for 200 innings and they both want to do it, I think it'll be pretty cool storyline this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And especially down in DC there and in the rain and whatever else happens here. But yeah, I mean, we can get into Nola real quick. Just again, his third year in a row where he's been the starter to clinch, the postseason berth on Monday. And it was awesome, man. It was so cool to see him. Yeah, man, just durable. And the standing ovation that he got from the Philly faithful on his last regular season start was awesome. Well deserved.
Strom come in and get him out of that jam without, because his line could have easily been 6 innings and 4 earned. And
correct.
He played so much better than that when the bases loaded there when Strom came in. So it was cool to see Strom limit the damage. Not to cut you off. A cool thing that he had a good line in that game because he pitched really well up until that 6th or 7th inning.
And me and Taryn actually were talking about that up in New York this weekend. Just in terms of, I feel like it's always Strom coming in after Nola and always kind of just shutting the door.
Yeah.
And we can get into the bullpen too, but we're kind of running out of time here. Let's talk about Corey's tweet just for the Phillies' plans for the next week during the bye. So Monday they're off regardless. Tuesday is a mandatory team workout. Wednesday will be an intra-squad game. Thursday is an optional workout. Thoughts on that? And then Friday's a mandatory team workout at the same time as Saturday's game, whenever that may be. We don't know yet when game 1 will be on Saturday. But just your thoughts kind of going in. Do you think that's, I mean, it's obviously the best plan, and obviously it's been the talking point now for the last 2 years of Brian Snitker, the Braves manager, being like, yeah, this time off kind of screwed us up a little bit for the Braves. But now, the Phillies are in this boat, but the Phillies have all come out and said, there's been multiple players, Rod Thompson said it, they want this week off. They need some rest time.
Right.
And now looking at that schedule, are you okay with that schedule?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Snitker. Like the Braves tried it both ways. Like the first year, they really didn't do much of anything, just let the guys get off their feet. Phillies bounce them in the DS. Okay, well, the next year, we're going to have inter-squad games. We're going to
I think they had their fans come in and stuff.
So I had heard rumblings that the Phillies were going to have, some inter-squad games and make it his game. Like yesterday, Rob Thompson talked about, we're going to have walk-up music. We're going to have the umps. We're going to go 8 innings. We're going to have the scoreboard on. So they want to make it as game-like as possible. He also said Tuesday's workout will probably have a live component to it. It won't be like a full-blown inter-squad game like Wednesday will be, but he's going to have some, I would take away from live pitching maybe for the hitters there on Tuesday, just to get him a couple looks at some live pitching in addition to Wednesday. And then Thursday workout, Friday, I think, it's the MLB mandated day before the game. So yeah, I'm not surprised they're doing inter-squad scrimmage. I thought maybe they would try to do 2, but again, it sounds like Tuesday could be maybe a little partial live. But yeah, I think you have to. You can't, especially in baseball. Like they're going to have 5 days completely off, and you just don't have that. Even the All-Star break's only 4 days. And you come out of the All-Star break and be like, the All-Star break. Yeah, you come out of that and you're playing in Pittsburgh in late July. And if you don't come out sharp that first game, it's okay. We still got 60 games left in the season. Right. Well, this break, if you don't come out sharp in game 1 and you lose with Zach Wheeler on the mound, then it's like, oh boy. And then, you're fighting an uphill battle. So they just it's imperative. They got to come out Saturday and then obviously Sunday too, sharp. You don't have that same luxury of like, okay, after the All-Star break, you're all kind of just working your way back in. Like, oh, man, you're game 1 of the NLDS. Like it's go time. So it's a tough task, man. And we'll see how they handle it. But I think the way they're approaching, they've seen that Thompson said, we've talked to so many people about this break and how they've stayed out sharp. I know Kevin Long was part of a layoff in Washington in 2019 when they won the World Series. They finished the NLCS quick and they had to wait a while and they kept the hitter sharp. And so anyhow, they have experience. They've talked to people about it. They're prepared for it, but we'll see how it plays out come next Saturday.
Yeah. And Matt Gelb put out a great article this morning. Kyle Schwarber, his exact quote in the Gelb article was, there's going to be no excuse. And I completely agree with that. They've heard the excuses from the Braves the last 2 years. Now there's no excuses here for these guys, especially coming into a huge series, depending on who you play in the NLDS. It's going to be interesting too. Also in that article with Gelb, there's going to be a few players on the taxi squad before, getting into it. Max Lazar, Spencer Turnbull, who has been completely forgot about, Rafael Marchand, Aramis Garcia, Buddy Kennedy, and Cal Stevenson will be on that taxi squad. Yeah. I guess working out down in Florida, just getting ready as well.
I think they're in Allentown now.
Okay.
They're going to meet the Phillies Monday.
Oh, perfect.
Or off day Monday,
Sweet.
Tuesday, and they'll be involved in all these workouts.
There
too.
you go.
Yeah.
So looking forward to it. I mean, yeah, I guess with Turnbull, what are we going to see with Spencer Turnbull? One, is he going to make the roster? I think he does.
Yeah.
But does that kind of exclude Taijuan Walker then?
Yeah, I think so. I think Turnbull we talked about this on the pregame show Friday night. Ruben Amaro Jr. is a big advocate of Turnbull being on that roster and playing a role at some point during the postseason. Yeah, I don't think Taijuan has much of a, I know they were hopeful maybe he could, the relief role, but then, the game against the Cubs they lost earlier in the week, he really did not do well in that role. So I don't see any scenario where he's on the roster.
No, keep it. And Ricky made a good point about Taijuan kind of coming in with the bases loaded. He's never done that.
Right.
I kind of felt bad for the guy, and you do feel bad for him, man. And I think it is just kind of father time catching up to Taijuan here. And, what's the stat with the ERA? It's like no Phillies pitchers had a ERA above
80 innings pitched over 7 in since 1930.
Dude.
100 years.
Oh my God. Some of the names on there, it's your typical 1930 baseball names. Yes. But sorry, not to cut you off.
No.
But
it is crazy. But yeah, I think Turnbull will have a role, or at least be on the roster. We'll see.
I think he has to. And do you think Cody Clemens makes the roster?
Yes, I do. I do.
I think he has to.
Enough big hits. He's a left-handed bat off the bench. He's versatile defensively if they need an emergency him to play outfield or wherever.
Yep.
Anywhere in the infield other than shortstop, really. So yeah, I think he brings enough to the table where they like him as a bat off the bench, late innings that has kind of come up big for them over the last couple of years, really.
Yep, and kind of rapid fire here now too. We'll finish up and then we gotta get going here. You and I asked you the question last night during the game in the office here. Your starting center or your starting left fielder and your starting center field game 1 at NLDS.
Yeah, I think provided it's against a right-handed pitcher, I think you'll see Marsh in left and Rojas in center.
Yeah.
I just think Rojas, I think Wheeler, I think a lot of the pitchers just like having him back there.
For sure.
Running down fly balls, covering all that ground out there. So I'd be surprised if Rojas doesn't start in center field and they just live with whatever he gives them offensively in the 9-hole. But that's what I would think. I would think Marsh left, Rojas center in game 1.
And then have Austin Hayes, Cody Clemens, Weston Wilson on the bench?
Yeah, I think so. I think all those guys are on the bench. And, it wouldn't shock me if Hayes is starting at some point, but I think they're going to opt for defense with Rojas in center, Marsh in left, and then kind of go from there. Obviously against a left-handed pitcher, I would expect Hayes to be in the lineup. But yeah, that's my best guess. Yeah.
And Austin Hayes, thank goodness for him kind of preventing the shutout last night with his second home run as a Philly, fifth of the season. But man, he's a great dude. And obviously he's dealt with a lot, especially with the kidney infection and the hamstring, came back. He spoke after the game the other day, just kind of talking about how he's starting to feel like himself again. And those 14 days there, man, were brutal with the kidney infection, saying that he couldn't even walk. Like it was hard to run. It was hard to walk. It was hard to get up. And he started to get worried about his health, which I would have too. When he was talking about it, it kind of started giving me a little panic attack of just kind of like, okay, man, that's kind of terrifying. But Austin Hayes, I think, will definitely have a role. Obviously he has to. He's under team control for next year as well. But yeah, it's interesting. I think you have to start Johan, and then if he comes up, like he had a big spot in game 7 of the NLCS last year.
Early too.
Right.
You have to be ready to pinch hit for him in like the 3rd inning.
Yeah, exactly. And then you give up that defense though, like you said, though, man, like Wheeler and those guys, Nola too, they've all talked about how much they feel better with him back there. Right. It's hard to argue with it. And that's the thing. It's, if you start Marsh in center and Hayes in left or whatever it may be, or you could even start Weston Wilson in a game, but do you substitute Johan coming in center field at some point just for defensive purposes? But then God forbid he comes up in a big spot in the 8th inning and you're down 2-1. Yeah. It's a tough decision for Rob Thompson here going forward. And again, glad we're sitting here and not where Rob is. But sure. All right, let's wrap up.
All right.
Give a little Ricky's preview here.
Big time.
Dude, 7th annual. As we mentioned earlier, it's a big day, man. It's a big day here at NBC Sports Philadelphia.
Handed out. Trying to think of a good team. Ricky's probably favorite award.
I know what you're going to say.
Taking a very fascinating, borderline odd liking to Gus the Groundhog.
Yeah.
The commercials, Gus.
It's not where I thought you were going to go, but yeah.
No.
I thought you were going to be the Profiling Well.
Profiling Well, the Gabe Kapler Profiling Well Award. That'll be given out. We like to name some of the awards after people. So the Gus the Groundhog Keep on Scratching Award. Ricky takes a lot of pride in that one because he loves Gus. And it's given to a player who, it encounters some adversity, but keeps on scratching and doesn't give up, keeps on scratching, and kind of in the long run comes out on top. So we'll see. There's some good candidates.
Oh, yeah.
The guy in right field, I think, is a good candidate this year. I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah.
But he kept on scratching. He had a rough first couple months, and now here he is.
One of the most consistent hitters on the plate.
Yeah,
at the plate for the
half of the
Phils.
season. So we'll see. But anyway, tune in at 3:30 to find out all the winners.
What about? Do you got any profiling wells?
Yes.
Give me 3 options on who could be the profiling well.
Wells. You look to the bullpen. I think guys that profile well in their role. Jeff Hoffman comes to mind. Matt Strahm comes to mind. Or maybe Matt Strahm. He might win another award.
Okay.
I don't want to give that away.
Okay.
But yeah, guys like that, guys who profile well. I think you can argue like a Trey Turner profiled well in his second season. He got hurt, but generally he's hitting around 300 for some pop. So he profiled well offensively, obviously defensively, not quite as much. So I don't want to give it away.
No.
There's so many candidates. There's a lot of hard work and thinking that goes into this award show. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out.
Last one. I think it's a Ricky, but just the team MVP. And this can be a discussion for you and I.
Yes.
Who is your team MVP of the 2024 regular season?
He is starting today in Washington. He's on the mound. I know the pitcher's tough. You want to give it to an everyday guy, but he's been so good. Second on my ballot would be Schwarber. I know he was a DH, so Harper was obviously in the discussion. Is in the discussion, but I would go. Wheeler 1, Schwarber 2. Yep,
and with mine, number 2 is my number 1, Kyle Schwarber. I mean, he was asked about, is there any defining moments here in terms of a season? And that grand slam against the Marlins, August, they were struggling, and that just was the huge turnaround. And man, ends up with 100 RBIs again.
Yeah,
could get to 40 home runs. What's he at? 38 right now.
Yeah,
so 2 games left, 2 away.
Yep.
Yeah, man, Kyle Schwarber has just been so good this year, and almost underrated to a point. Just it's been the discussion of him at the top of the lineup all season long, and it's clearly worked out in his favor and in the Phillies' favor. Yeah. Before we go, I'm sorry, we have one more thing. Getting away from the Phillies a little bit. Big trade last night. The first Shams bomb. I don't know if that's a thing, but for our listeners and viewers that don't know, Sean Kane, big Villanova guy.
I am big Villanova guy. Didn't go to school. I went to Westchester University.
Shout out, baby.
Golden Rams.
Oh, 2 Golden Rams right here, man.
But my family, my dad's side of grandfather, uncles, my dad, big Villanova fan. So growing up, going to tons of Villanova basketball and football games. So, and I obviously working here, I've covered the team. So yeah, big Villanova guy. So. Yes, to your point, Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart, and now former Nick, Dante DiVincenzo, newest Nick, Mikal Bridges. So I was really
the Nova 4.
I don't want to say this too loud. Like I was really enjoying watching them play last year, and obviously the playoffs was a little awkward. But yeah, I was looking forward to like the 4 of them being together, and then Dante out the door for a Kentucky guy, no less.
Yeah, exactly.
My wife is a big Kentucky graduate, obviously, and she's a big fan of Cat. So you get rid of one Kentucky guy in Randall, you bring in another one. I don't know. We'll see with Karl Anthony Towns. Obviously, he's a skilled guy, but. Hate to lose Dante. Dante's a winner, man. Dante's a gamer too.
That he is.
Figure the game, all the way back to college, Final Four MVP.
Yep.
I could talk for hours, man. Really wants that
I had to get you going a little
Double
bit.
D, the pride of Wilmington, Delaware, Salesianum, stand up. We'll miss you, Dante, and best of luck in Minnesota.
That's right. We had to touch base, and it was a late night Shams bomb last night, and just like the NBA, man, there's I feel like it's very quiet, and then all of a sudden there's always something that will create a little chaos. And again, with a few days away from training camp, and our good buddies over at Phillies or at Sixers Talk with Amy Fadul, Danny Palmels, and Noah Levick, give them a listen. But we're concerned right now about the Phils. 2 games remaining here in the regular season down in Washington. Zach Wheeler on the mound, Aaron Nola on the mound on Sunday. Looking forward to it. And then, I'm sure we'll be in touch here. We'll probably get at least 2 more pods before game 1 of the NLDS on Saturday. So tune in for those. But yeah, man, we'll keep powering through here just as much as the Phillies are and keep it moving forward. And looking forward to a crazy red October once again. So for Sean Kane, I'm Spencer McKercher. We'll catch you guys next week.